Welcome to this episode of the Aquarist Edge, a podcast for home aquarists just like you. Learn more about how to keep a thriving aquarium and discover ideas and tips to give your aquarium the edge. And now, over to our host, Arthur Preston.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Aquarist Edge. Today we're going to talk about something that many hobbyists think that they want, and then they accidentally run away from it because it doesn't stay the way they intended in the first place, and that is the low-tech planted tank that actually stays low maintenance. Now, if you've ever said something like, I want plants but I don't want to mess with CO2, or I'm busy, I can't be pruning every weekend, or why does every easy planted tank on YouTube turn into an algae mess in my tank, then this episode is for you. We're going to look at what is a truly low-tech tank, how we keep it genuinely low maintenance, and how we keep an ecosystem that is stable and forgiving. So let's start with looking at what a low-tech tank really means. When people say low-tech, they generally mean no injected carbon dioxide, modest lighting, and minimal fertilizer dosing. But in reality, many so-called low-tech tanks are actually under-equipped high-tech tanks with powerful lights, demanding plants with no CO2, and no nutrient planning. And that combination almost always guarantees algae, plant melt, and frustration. A true low-tech system is built on three pillars. 1. Low demand. Balanced input. Number 2. And number 3. Biological stability. The science is quite simple. In any planted tank, plant growth is controlled by the most limiting factor. And here's what I mean. If there's plenty of light but not enough CO2, then CO2 is the limiter. If there's enough CO2 but no nutrients, nutrients are the limiter. And if everything is in excess, algae rushes in to use the spare resources. In a low-tech tank, CO2 is naturally limited because you're not injecting it. So we have to then match our light and nutrients to that limited CO2. That's the heart of a stable low-tech tank. Keep light modest, keep stocking and feeding reasonably, and don't overdose fertilizers. Right from the start of this, I want you to think of your tank as an ecosystem that you design. It's not just a box of water with some pretty plants. So let's talk about that tank. Let's talk about the hardware. Tiny tanks will look great on Instagram, they look cute, but they're not low maintenance for beginners. Under 30 litres, they are very sensitive to parameter swings. Every feeding and every water change has a big impact. Around 60 to 120 litres is the sweet spot, but over 200 litres is great when you have experience. They are stable, but they do require bigger and heavier water changes and a lot more planning. So go for a tank in the 70 to 120 litre range. In terms of your filter, low tech doesn't mean no tech, remember, it means simple, robust tech. So you're looking for good biological media space, gentle flow, and that is easy to maintain. For most low tech planted setups, a small canister filter or a good quality internal filter is ideal. You need to aim for roughly 5 to 8 times the tank volume per hour in flow, but you can reduce the outflow with a spray bar or a lily pipe to keep it gentle. Just remember that in planted tanks, water movement isn't just for the fish. It delivers nutrients and carbon dioxide to the plant leaves. Most tropical freshwater plants and community fish are happy with a temperature of around 23 to 26 degrees Celsius, and that's also a comfortable range for beneficial bacteria. It's a good idea to have a separate thermometer so you don't rely just on your heater to gauge to mark the temperature of your tank. Now in lighting, this is where most low-tech tanks are won or lost. For low-tech success, use a moderate LED designed for aquariums, aim for 6 to 7 hours of light per day to start, and if your light is a dimming switch, start at 50 to 60% intensity rather than full power. We're deliberately underdriving the light to match the natural CO2 conditions. You can always add light later. It's much harder to undo a tank that's been taken over by algae. In terms of substrate, you've really got 3 main approaches here. The first one is to use an inert substrate and root tabs. That would be fine gravel or sand, into which you add root tabs under heavy root feeders such as swords and crypts. It's cheap, it's stable, and it's very predictable. The second option is to use a nutrient-rich planted substrate, an aquasoil. Now this is great for plant growth, especially at the beginning, but they can leach ammonia early on, so you must cycle properly and be sure you read the instructions on the bag. They are more expensive, but the plants love them. The third option, of course, is a hybrid option, the one that I personally enjoy the most. There you have nutrient soil at the back, capped with sand or gravel at the front, for a natural look and easier cleaning. So whatever substrate you choose, aim for 5 to 7 centimeter depth in plaster areas so that the roots have room to spread. In the foreground, where you don't want to plant carpet plants, you can go shallower at around 2 to 3 centimeters. Now, for the fun part of plants. We need to pick plants that are happy in low to medium light, that don't need CO2, that grow at moderate speed and tolerate a range of water parameters. So we'll start with the workhorse stem plants. These will act as nutrient sponges and they're very fast growing. So this would be plants such as Hygrophila, Limnophila and Rotala rotundifolia. These plants help compete algae early on, and you can always remove or trim them back as the tank matures. Then you have some amazing superstar plants in a low-tech tank. This is species such as Java fern, Anubias, cryptocorin, Java moss, Amazon sword. These plants don't demand high light, and they generally handle the ups and downs of a new tank better than delicate carpeting plants. And then of course there's the secret algae hack, and that is to use floating plants. Floating plants are massively underrated in low-tech setups. That'll be things like your frogbit, your redroot floaters, your salvinia, duckweed. They shade the tank a bit, they reduce the algae pressure, they suck up extra nutrients directly from the water, and they provide cover that makes shy fish feel secure. The only caveat is that don't let them cover 100% of the surface, or other plants will be starved for light. Now there are certain plants that you want to avoid in a low-tech tank. You can keep these if you've got some experience behind you, but they often disappoint beginners, and that is mostly the red highlighted stem plants, or fast carpeting plants, or fine delicate species that demand perfect water conditions. If you want to succeed with these, then don't go for a low-tech tank. Rather spend your time and money developing a high-tech tank that uses CO2 injection and can allow the plants to thrive. Let's walk through the setup of a low-tech tank. Just imagine you've brought home a 90-litre tank, a moderate LED light, a canister or internal filter, a 100-watt heater, substrate and hardscape, and a selection of the plants we've just discussed. The first thing we do is the prep and the planning. So you're going to rinse the tank, make sure you don't use chemicals, just clean water and a soft cloth. Check the stand or the surface on which you're placing the tank, make sure that it's level and it's strong enough. Visualize your layout. Use the rule of thirds. Place your main structure off center for a natural look and keep some open swimming space. Then we're going to add substrate. If you're using aquasoil, put it where most plants will go, maybe sloped from front to back. If you're using inert substrate plus root tabs, place the tabs roughly where the big root feeders will sit, then cover with 5 to 7 centimeters of substrate. Gently mist the substrate with water so that it's damp, not flooded, and that will help the plants stay in place. Then go ahead and start positioning your hardscape. That means placing your rocks and your driftwood firmly into the substrate. You're going to want to use stable pieces that don't topple when you're planting, that add some vertical height to break up the horizontal lines, but leave open areas at the front and the center for fish to swim. Think of it like creating a mini valley or an island or a riverbank underwater. When it comes time to plant your plants, start with your background stems. Plant them densely, aiming for 1 to 2 centimeters spacing between the stems. Then place your mid-ground plants, like your crypts and your Java fern, and tuck them in and around the rocks and the wood. For your foreground and the mosses, attach the moss and epiphytes such as Anubias and some ferns to hardscape with glue or thread. Remember, very importantly, do not bury the rhizomes of Java fern or Anubias. Only their roots should be in contact with the surface, because a buried rhizome will rot. It's an easy mistake to make when you're starting out, and I certainly lost some plants like that in my early days. Once everything is in, gently mist the plants again to keep them moist. Now, how do you go about filling the tank without destroying everything you've just set up? You can place a plastic bag, a plate, or a piece of cling wrap on the substrate and gently and slowly pour water onto that, so that you're not blasting the plants out of the sand. You fill with dechlorinated water up to just below the rim. Then you turn on your filter, your heater, and your light. You want to check for leaks, temperature, and just let everything run. Now we're going to the phase where most people either succeed or they give up, and that is the first 6 to 12 weeks when the ecosystem settles. As fish waste, plant decay, and uneaten food break down, they produce ammonia, toxic to fish even at very low levels. Beneficial bacteria convert ammonia to nitrite, which is also toxic, and a second group convert nitrite to nitrate, which is much less harmful in moderate amounts. You will know that this is called the nitrogen cycle. Plants also use ammonia and nitrate as fertilizer, which helps, but early on in your tank's life, bacteria populations are small, so we do need to be careful. The question I'm often asked is, can I add my fish immediately? So here's what I believe is the best approach. The first week, second week, no fish, only plants. Optionally, you could add a small pinch of fish food every day or every few days to feed the bacteria, or use bottled bacteria. Week 3 and 4, add the first small group of hardy fish once ammonia and nitrite test at 0. In week 5 to 8, slowly start building up your stocking in stages. The plants start growing, the bacteria colonize the filter, and the system becomes more forgiving. To keep things low maintenance and algae free, have your lights on for 6 hours per day for the first 3 to 4 weeks. If your light is dimmable, keep it to around 50 to 60%. If you're going to use fertilizer, use it at half the recommended dose once or twice a week. And use those root tabs under heavy feeders as you had planned. Remember, we're aiming for steady and gentle growth, not racing plants. In the first month, do a 30 to 40% water change twice a week. After the tank stabilizes, usually after 6 to 8 weeks, you can reduce this to 30% a week or 20 to 25% every 10 to 14 days, depending on your stocking and your test results. Doing water changes regularly is still the single most powerful maintenance habit that you have. So what happens then when your tank is mature and running smoothly as a low-tech tank? Your daily maintenance would be checking, observing, are all fish behaving normally? Are there any odd smells or leaks or drastic changes? You're going to be feeding your fish small amounts once or twice a day. On a weekly basis, or every 10 days or so, you're going to do a water change of 20 to 30%, and you're going to refill with temperature-matched dechlorinated water. Use a magnetic scraper or sponge to remove algae spots from the glass, and check your filter. Look at the outflow. Is the flow still strong? And if the flow is reduced, schedule a clean of your filter. On a monthly basis, rinse your sponges and media in a bucket of tank water, leave under the tap, and don't overclean. You just want to remove the gunk. You don't want to sterilize the tank. That gets rid of all the bacteria that are doing such a good job at keeping your tank stable. In terms of your plants, you want to trim fast-growing stems and replant the tops if they're healthy and they're lush. Remove any decaying leaves from crypts, swords, or Anubias. And this is where low-tech shines. You're not constantly fighting explosive growth or chasing carbon dioxide levels. You're just nudging the system back into balance from time to time. Oliver Knott is a professional aquascaper, and he demonstrates simple layouts that he says are, quote, easy to set up and do not require much effort to maintain, yet look beautiful for a long time. And I think that's the goal. The simple equipment, smart plant choices, and regular small habits. Now, even with the best intents in the world and doing all the right things, you can have some troubles. And one of the most common is algae. There are a variety of different types of algae that can start inhabiting your tank, and you need to ask yourself 3 questions when you are dealing with an algae outbreak. Is my light too strong or on too long? If yes, reduce the photo period. Consider lowering the light intensity. You also need to ask yourself if you're overfeeding or if your tank is overstocked. Check how much you are feeding. Can you reduce this by 10 to 20%? Are your nitrates climbing? If so, reduce feeding or stocking or increase the water change frequency. Thirdly, ask yourself if you have enough healthy plant mass. If plants are sparse, algae will take advantage. So add more fast-growing stems or floating plants to soak up the nutrients. You can also manually remove as much algae as you can. You can scrape, siphon, and trim affected leaves. Do a large water change, 40 to 50%. Adjust the light and feeding as described. And you could add a few algae helpers, for example, certain small snails or algae-eating fish, but don't ever rely on these alone. Now, what happens if your plants melt? And crypt melt is almost a rite of passage in a planted tank. Crypt Aquarium plants often shed their old leaves when moved, then regrow adapted new ones. That's quite normal, as long as the crown of the plant is firm and new shoots begin to appear within a few weeks. If all of your plants are melting, that's a sign of a bigger issue. That could be from a sudden major parameter change, extremely high temperatures, ammonia spikes, or the shock from being moved from immersed to submersed. Dealing with this means removing rotting leaves to prevent water quality issues, keeping up with your water changes, checking the temperature and testing your water for ammonia and nitrite. And also, an important aspect of fish keeping is be patient. Many plants will bounce back if their roots are intact. Now, what about cloudy water? This sometimes shows up in a low-tech tank, and it could be white or milky, it could be a bacterial bloom, it could be green, which is free-floating algae, or it could be yellow or brown, which is tannins from wood or leaves or dissolved organics. Each of these has a slightly different approach, and let's deal with each one. Milky cloudiness is common in new systems. It's the bacteria that are adjusting to the tank. It usually resolves on its own if you don't overfeed and if you keep up with your water changes. Avoid overcleaning everything. Just let the beneficial bacteria establish themselves. In terms of green water, it's usually caused by excess light and excess nutrients. Reduce the light intensity and the duration of the light, increase your water changes, and sometimes doing a blackout, that means covering the tank for a few days on all sides, can help. But always ensure that fish still have oxygen from surface agitation. If your tank is yellow or brown, it could be caused by tannins from driftwood or botanicals. It's usually harmless, and to be honest, some people really like the look of a black water tank. If it's from dissolved organics due to poor maintenance, it may come with smell and surface scum. In that case, increase your water changes and siphon the tank. You can also look for fish that are gasping at the surface, that have clamped fins, that are hiding constantly, or they're flashing, that means they're rubbing against objects, or they are experiencing rapid breathing. In a low-tech planted tank, common causes of this would include poor oxygenation, ammonia or nitrite spikes, or big sudden parameter swings. And the way we resolve this is to increase surface agitation, do a large water change up to about 50%, test for your ammonia and nitrite, and stop feeding for 24 hours. Hungry fish are better off than fish in toxic water. And once things stabilize, look at the underlying cause. It could be overstocked tank, it could be the habits of the feeding routine, or it could be a lack of consistency in maintenance. Before we wrap up this episode, I want to talk about keeping the hobby enjoyable long term. Low tech doesn't mean boring. You can still create beautiful layouts with wood and rocks and contrasting plant textures. You can keep active communities of small fish such as rasboras, tetras or life bearers, and you can add shrimp and snails for more life and algae control. Just keep the low-tech principles in mind. Understock rather than overstock. Choose fish that match your water parameters rather than chasing species that need very different conditions. And resist the urge to constantly buy new plants and fish. Each addition is a change that the system must absorb. If you ever feel tempted to add a more demanding plant or slightly increase your light, then do it deliberately and one variable at a time so you can see how the tank responds. It's very important that our aquariums remain a place of calm, a place of harmony, a place of balance, not another source of pressure in an already busy life. And low-tech planted tanks embody that idea beautifully when they're set up with balance in mind. So let's bring everything together here. Today we looked at how to build a low-tech planted tank that actually stays low maintenance. We defined what low-tech truly is, that is low demand, balanced input and biological stability. We want to choose a sensible tank size with the reliable equipment, the right kind of light and substrate. Choose forgiving plants that don't need CO2 or don't need injected CO2 rather. Make sure that you focus on getting your cycling correct in the beginning, that you are dedicated to your maintenance schedule, and that is also realistic and that can fit into a busy life. And then we also looked at a couple of issues around troubleshooting for algae, plant melt, cloudy water and stressed fish, so that you know what to do when things don't go as planned. And if you remember nothing else, remember these 3 rules. Number 1, keep the light modest. Number 2, do regular water changes. And number 3, stock and feed lightly. Do these consistently and your planted tank will reward you with that calm, living artwork in your home. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, it would help a lot if you could leave a rating on your podcast app or review the podcast. It tells the podcast app algorithm that people like us do exist, people who are keen aquarists, and will then put this podcast on their screens as well. If you happen to be listening or watching on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate that. You could also like the video and click the notification bell so that you don't miss future episodes. Feel free also to add a comment on the YouTube channel. Always nice to hear your voices as well on that platform. We are rapidly heading towards the end of the year, and I look forward to sharing the next few episodes with you before we go into our next season in the coming month. So until then, keep learning, keep discovering, and keep enjoying this amazing hobby. Bye for now.
That's it for this episode of the Aquarist Edge. Please consider subscribing to this podcast so that you don't miss further episodes. We would love it if you would also rate and review the podcast, as this helps make it visible to others. Until next time, keep learning and discovering, and keep finding your Aquarist Edge in this captivating and fascinating hobby.